Are Championship football badges getting better or worse? That's what we're going to be looking into in today's video. I've gone through every Championship side, taken their current badge and stacked it up against their older and more traditional badge to see which one I prefer. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you a sucker for tradition or do you like the more modern style? Also, a quick call to action. Over 70% of you aren't subscribed to the channel who watch the videos, so make sure to go ahead and hit that button. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Now, to be fair to Blackburn Rovers, they've had their current badge for quite a while. The badge you still see on the Blackburn Rovers shirt today dates back to around the 1990s when they had that rebrand. The older badge you can then see on screen is the badge that Blackburn used between the sort of 70s and 80s. If I had to pick between the two, I'd probably sway towards the newer badge, you know. I don't think that either are all too bad. Obviously, both feature the rose very prominently, but if I had to pick between the two, I'd go modern for Blackburn. Bristol City have done what a lot of sides have done in recent history. They've changed their badge to a more circular one to sort of fit in with modern day branding and things like that, and it definitely looks like a more modern and up-to-date sort of sleek badge, doesn't it? With that being said, I think in this version I am a bit of a sucker for the older badge of Bristol City. That one right there just takes me back. The new version is decent, to be fair. It features the robin very prominently, but I think I'm a sucker for the older badge with Bristol City, you know. When it comes to Burnley, I'm definitely picking the older badge as the one that I prefer between these two. I'm still not fully accustomed to Burnley using that more modern badge that they do today, but that older one there screams to me players like Chris Eagles or Robbie Blake. Choice between those two, I'm saying I prefer the older badge. When it comes to Cardiff, they've had quite the range of different badges throughout the club's history. That very strange point in time when they went all red with the kit and badge and everything. Stacking these two up against each other here, I don't mind either of them. I think I'm slightly edging towards the older one, maybe because it has that bit more uniqueness to it. When it comes to Coventry's old and new badge, you've got the elephant that features quite prominently on both of them. Obviously, the older badge being a little bit more basic. I think the badge that Coventry use right now has really become synonymous with that side, and I think out of the two of them, I probably would prefer that newer badge for Coventry. The older one's a nice nod to history, but between the two, I'm picking the new Coventry badge there. Derby County have gone back and forth throughout their history, really, with a lot of different designs. You can see the current version they're using right there. I've stacked it against one of their more Coca-Cola Championship sort of badges, I think you'd probably describe it as. Not much has changed here. They've just taken the ram out of the actual circle, and for the sake of uniqueness, I think I prefer the badge they're rocking with right now. Hull City have kept things very similar from a redesign point of view. They've literally just changed the emblem that the Tigers in, and obviously have changed around the right in that little bit. I do think both badges are quite cool. It's hard to mess up something with a tiger on the front. Out of the two of them though, I think I'm swaying towards that older badge as a personal preference between the two. Leeds United next up. Now, Leeds United haven't changed their official club emblem in quite a while. Obviously, there was that point a few years ago where they tried to change it to this monstrosity, but thankfully that didn't go through in the end. Instead, we'll compare these two badges here, and I mean, the older one is a great nod to history. I always see quite a few people on Twitter with that as their sort of avatar. I do think that more modern Leeds United badge has become so synonymous with that side in recent history. I do think I prefer the newer version when it comes to Leeds United, but I'm sure a lot of other people will be on the opposite side of the fence there. Luton Town's a really interesting one. I think in some ways the older badge actually looks a bit more modern than their newer badge does, if that sort of makes sense. It's a lot more sort of neat and tidy, their older badge, and I do think it actually looks quite slick, but between the two, I think the newer one probably does have that bit more character. It's got the hat on top. I think there's more details to enjoy with that newer badge as well. So while the older one is a little bit sleeker, I think I'm edging towards new there. That older Middlesbrough badge right there really does take you back, doesn't it? Don't hate the redesign of the newer one, and do you know what? There's not much in it between these two. The newer badge definitely looks a lot more spaced out. It's got a lot more white present, but I kind of like how compact that older badge was for Middlesbrough. Two solid badges, but between the two of them, I think I prefer the Alderborough badge, you know. When it comes to Millwall, they've not really changed up their badge all too much in recent history, but of the two examples that I've picked out here, do you know what? I'm a bit of a sucker for that older badge. It's got the lion actually bursting out of the crest, which I think is quite a unique feature. Although I do like the newer badge for the greater contrast of colours it's got in there. Do you know what? I'm just edging that to the old badge is the one I prefer out of them two. When it comes to Norwich City, their badge has remained pretty consistent over the years. The badge that you can see on screen there, they've made slight tweaks to it over the years, but generally speaking, it's the same sort of logo that they've had, even dating back to around the 1940s. The older version that I've picked out here was what Norwich were rocking with around the 1920s, so really a throwback logo there. I do like the uniqueness of that one, but I'm not going to lie, on a modern shirt, that one probably would look quite dated and out of place. So between the two badges here, I'd definitely say I'm a fan of the new one. Between these two iterations of the Oxford United badge, I'm swaying towards the newer version. I think you need to get that bit of yellow somewhere in there in the badge, and they've obviously kept that older version and just put it into a crest and got the yellow behind it. That comes together as a badge much cleaner, I think, than the older version. When it comes to Plymouth Argyle, generally speaking, their badges remain pretty consistent, especially in modern history. They have sort of switched out the different emblems on their logo, going from circular to now the more modern pattern that we've got here. Out of the two versions, I'd probably say I do prefer the newer version, but that's probably me becoming so accustomed to it. That old Portsmouth badge right there is a real throwback, and I mean, I don't mind the modern Portsmouth badge, but that older one there that I've got on screen really just takes me back to my childhood. You know, it takes you back to Defoe and Crouch up front for Pompey, days of them being in the Premier League and that sort of stuff. For me, that has to be one of the most nostalgic football badges on this whole video. That's winning the badge off for me personally, the old one for Pompey. When it comes to my side, Preston North End, we've had quite a few different badges throughout the club's history, all of which with a slightly different touch on them, but all remaining quite consistent with the lamb and the cross on them and things like that. As modern badges go, I do really like the North End one, if I'm being honest, the one we are rocking with at the moment. I think it's obviously still very relevant to the badges we've had in the past, but also has that modern feel to it as well, which I like. QPR next up, that older badge is definitely a throwback for QPR, and when they used to rock with that badge, I don't think I was the biggest fan of it, but comparing these two side by side, I do think I'm swaying towards that older badge, you know, as a preference between these two. The badge design that QPR have got now anyway is a sort of throwback to one they used to wear anyway, but that older one I've got on screen there definitely brings back some nostalgia. Current badge that Sheffield United are rocking with, I am a really big fan of, but that older logo that I managed to find, oh my god, I really like the look of that one, you know, obviously. Both have got the blades in there. It's a very similar pattern, actually. Red's a bit more prominent on the new badge, which is what I like about that. But I can't lie, that older badge does look pretty sleek, doesn't it? I'm still going to say I prefer the newer badge out of the two, but a throwback kit with that old Blades badge on would be really nice from Sheffield United, I'd say. Do have some fond memories of that older Sheffield Wednesday badge for sure, but do you know what? As modern redesigns go, I do quite like the newer badge that Sheffield United have got. You know, obviously blue's a lot more prominent on it, the owl obviously a lot more detailed as well. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these badges, but if I had to choose my preference between the two, do you know what? I think I'm swaying towards the newer one. Stoke City haven't really changed their badge since around 2001, I think, so that modern version that they're rocking with really is synonymous to the club, a whole generation of supporters who will have just grown up with that just being the isolated badge of Stoke. But there is quite the history of previous badges that Stoke have had. I do think that if they were to flip back to the old one right now, it would be quite the shift because people are so accustomed to that newer one, but there are some redeeming factors about some of the older Stoke badges. With that being said, I think I am a sucker for the new one. I think absolutely everyone is accustomed to Sunderland and the badge they're rocking with right now, and I do think that one is a really nice badge. With that being said, the old one also has some characteristics which I do like about it. The only thing I'd say about the old one though is, does blue belong on a Sunderland badge? I'm not so sure. Obviously with the boat on there though and the touch to the area is really nice, but out of the two of them, I'm saying I prefer the newer Sunderland badge. Swansea City have done quite a few tweaks to their badge over the years. I've flashed a couple of them on screen there, but there are countless more examples of the slight tweaks that Swansea have made to their badge in recent times. Do you know what? Out of all the Swansea badges, especially the ones from modern history, the one that I probably prefer most is the one they rocked in the 2022/23 season. I'll flash it on screen here. That was sort of a nice mashup of old and new, and was probably my favourite Swansea badge. With Watford being known as the Hornets, that old badge definitely makes sense. But I think I've become so accustomed to seeing Watford with that newer badge now that anything away from that would be a bit of a shock to the system for sure. The old badge is nice, but I think on a modern shirt that would need to be updated somehow because it would look pretty dated, wouldn't it? Between the two of them, I'm giving the vote to the newer Watford badge here. Finally then, for West Brom, who have been pretty consistent with their badge throughout their entire history really. They've made slight tweaks and alterations to it, but the core features of the Baggies badge have generally remained the same. They've just sort of modernized that older badge there that you can see on screen. And you know what? I actually think they've done it quite well. Between the two of them, I think I do prefer the newer West Brom badge. But West Brom do have quite a nice history of some proper nice classic badges as well, which definitely deserve an honourable mention. But guys, that will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'd be interested to get some of your takes in the comments down below as well. Old or new football badges, let me know your preferences. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.